Hello, everybody. I'm Carmel. I'm the founder of Desperately Seeking, and I'm thrilled to welcome you again to Zoom Shake the Room, the short for D Street. And this year, I'm thrilled to announce our launch of new expert sessions. It will take place once a month, every last Friday at 3:30 CEST. And if you want to join our Zoom discussion, go to our website for more information. But before we start, I want to thank our sponsors. Cute Anon, the dating podcast for those who are looking to contact to a deeper state. Maggie's Vegan Crystals Against the Apocalypse, Good Atmosphere for Houses on Fire, and our sister Facebook group, Cats Are Evil and Fuck Them, and our ongoing sponsor since last year already, Killer Shakes, Don't Drink, Don't Ask, and just like last year, this week again, special delivery to any DS member who reports to them the code we sent earlier in the DS community channel. And I will be hosting today's event. I will also be taking questions from our internal community chat in the DS portal and also here on Zoom and YouTube. As always, I'm joined by my community core members, Gabriel S. Moses and Gozle Gango. Say hi. Thank you. Thank you for being here. And we are also very happy to be joined by Ethan Roselinski, our special guest, who I will soon introduce. Ethan already did that. I like the gesture. Again, Ethan, thank you. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
But before, to those who are new to Desperately Seeking, I usually just say that we are a grassroots international digital wellness community. But this time, I will also read out words that others have used to describe us. For example, Maria Harvotova. She's a journalist who has been harassing us for the past 2 years already. And according to her, and I quote, Desperately Seeking is an artistic project, a so-called LARP, pretending to be a millennial wellness community, now turning a dark corner and renowned to have transformed into a conspiracy-ridden cult. It is exactly these kind of rumors that caused a lot of trouble for us last year. And this was also sadly the reason why last year's D-Street sessions were cut up short. And this is exactly why I decided to invite expert guests to our program this year to have a proper informed discussion about all that has been going on. And as I mentioned earlier, our first guest is Ethan Roselinski. Hello again, Ethan. Again, so great to have you with us. And I will introduce you. I will say some words about you. Ethan is a Berlin-based psychologist and psychoanalyst, sociologist and scholar in the study of cults. For 3 years now, he is the head of the Department of Messianism in the Institute of Abstract Addictions. And I invited Ethan especially to comment on a short 10-minute film I commissioned recently to document everything that happened last year. In this conversation that I've had with Ethan before, he promised that he will not only talk about, but also do some spiritual exercises with us that he calls a guided journey to find our will to power once again. And I'm really excited to see where this discussion with Ethan will go. But first, let's watch the film.
Okay. Start with your name, then 3 adjectives that describe you, and then say what is the one thing that you're looking for but haven't yet found.
So, my name is Carmel. I would describe myself as outgoing, ambitious, and hypersensitive. And I'm still looking for the new perspective.
The new perspective?
Yes, I believe that everything is not yet lost.
That's very optimistic for our day and age.
I guess. People are lost now, but only because they're looking for things the wrong way.
And that's what desperately seeking is all about?
Yes. And this is also how we ask every new participant or member to introduce themselves to the community.
What do you ask?
You have to say your name, 3 adjectives, and what's that one thing that you haven't yet found.
And what is desperately seeking?
It's an online-based grassroots community dedicated to digital wellness.
What do you mean by digital wellness?
I mean that we're trying to make the web human again, to deprogram it.
In what sense?
This planet has become a sick search engine where nothing genuine can be found, and I think that together we can heal this engine, and that is the new perspective.
That is the new perspective.
Yes.
Which you haven't yet found.
Correct. You know, this is very similar to what they asked me last month.
When they brought you in for questioning.
Yes.
What happened exactly?
What happened was what always happens when you come up with a new perspective. Some people don't want to see things your way, and then everything turns into a clusterfuck.
Cluster is one way to describe a community.
Desperately seeking was not a community at first. I came up with an idea and it grew because it wanted to, and I can't control it all.
So you're saying what happened wasn't up to you?
No, it wasn't. The world of wellness is meant for people who are not well, and some people started to talk crazy. There's now factions and conspiracy theories, so people are now calling us a cult, while other people, journalists, started claiming we don't even exist, and that is all made up.
And neither is the case?
Absolutely not. I'm not a leader, definitely not a cult leader. I'm a facilitator of a community, and this community is alive. There's an actual very real movement, and it's on the right track. If it wasn't real, it wouldn't be so scary to the authorities, and they wouldn't try to shut us down.
What did you tell them, the authorities?
My name, 3 adjectives, and that I'm still looking to realize a dream I had the other night.
You told them a dream?
Yes.
What was it about?
Well, I remember seeing a slogan, and I think it said, "Anything consumed must come out." And then I was driving with my parents to the suburbs to visit my uncle who lives in the US. I remember the street. And from when I was a kid, it was the same street. And then I saw my cousin.
Your cousin?
Yes, Jordan. Though everyone called her JJ since they moved, she was a few years younger than me, and she was really cool.
Why was?
Because she's been gone for a while. She always had eating disorders. Also in the dream, she does. And then she was sent away after attempting suicide twice. And then she logged off. And she vanished off from the face of the earth.
No one logs off today. Not like that.
Well, she did, and all of her friends too, and they also disappeared around the same time.
Why are you telling them all of this?
The dream about JJ? Because actually the human search engine was all her idea. My mom said she was manic bipolar and schizophrenic, but I knew better. And every now and then I'd see signs, so I knew she was up to something.
Signs?
That she went rogue, that she was putting together a covert army with her friends, that she was planning some kind of retaliation.
Doesn't every teenager?
Not like that. Kids today think differently. They were born into the system. They think like the system. They generate its content, but not like us. They're fused to its pipeline. They hack the content to tap into the form.
Like a virus?
No. Viruses are an outdated concept. If anything, they're like clickbait, embodied in human form.
A guerrilla movement of random human clickbait.
They are undetected spam. Her followers are growing. I'm pretty sure half of Desperately Seeking are actually bots or hacked accounts she commands.
So basically, you lied. You're not looking for a new perspective, to use your words. You're desperately seeking for your cousin to tell you what the new perspective is.
Yes. Nobody's attuned to the ground. Everybody's looking instead of listening. Everybody's obsessing about the web and forgetting about the pipeline. Sounds resonate differently there.
Wait, is this what happens in your dream? Are you still telling me what you told them?
I'm paraphrasing, but yes. They are also misguided. They see things backwards instead of listening straight. They asked me about her sleeper cells, but they didn't stop to think how the cells mixed with the water in the first place.
You still don't understand why they think you're leading a cult.
That's what I mean. You don't know how to look for the right stuff.
Like what?
Let me ask you a question, okay?
Okay.
What's your name?
You know my name. Gözde.
What are 3 adjectives that describe you?
Well, so we're doing that. Okay. I'm ambitious, empathetic, emotional a bit.
And what's that thing you're always looking for but haven't yet found?
That's the thing. I finally stopped looking for important things, and I feel I'm much better off like that at this point.
How so?
Because if I try looking for them, I end up in the deep end. I sat around during the lockdowns and I figured, this is it. The forests are going to light up one by one. Not today, then the day after. I wake up every morning feeling horrible, like I have a wet sponge for a brain. And the water there is so black by now, because it's just stuck there. I have all this thick water in my head, and all the while Siberia is burning. If that's the way it is, things are not going to get better before I explode, so...
No, things will get better. People are soaking up the water. It's black because they're filling it up with the little gray cells, and that's exactly what the pipeline is for. People say wellness without realizing it means something completely different.
Oh.
I've been reading between the lines.
Like, well?
People are using emojis differently these days, again.
Huh?
There's a shift in the zeitgeist. Haven't you noticed?
So thank you for screening the video, Gabrielle. And I think this is a good time for Ethan start a discussion, open us to what he can bring.
Yes, sure. So once again, thank you for having me. I will tell a little bit about the institute that I'm working for and our department. And then we'll turn to a few questions about you and try to figure out if this is really a case of a cult, or is it a case of an abstract addiction, as we call it in our in our institute. Okay, so first of all, our institute is the Institute of Abstract Addictions. We inherently reject the idea that the Nietzschean idea that what motivates people or humans or everything actually is the will to power. We think that maybe should be the case in sometimes, but it's definitely not the case as it is right now, because the will of every being to be more than they are, or more than it is, or to fulfill its purpose, is first of all achieved through through overcoming the inner conflicts or the inner tear, the life's contradictions. And we in the Institute, we think that since the Second World War, there has been an increasing number of ideologies identifying with those who are defined as not having the power, the weak. You may call him the Untermensch. Some may call them more of those rather than ones defined as the ones on top. Together with postmodern theory that only amplified any inner conflict and contradictions one might have on the subject matter, a new culture is rising slowly, represented by the will to no power, or the unwill to power, if you wish. And we can see that in a lot of life's aspects, or a lot of mostly with actual addictions. We throw our power into something external. releasing ourselves from responsibility. Every smoker knows it's not very easy to stop. You always can blame your smoking for your mood, for example. So you're kind of giving away part of your agency to the addiction. So the way to get rid of power, which is what we all really want these days, is through getting rid of responsibility. And the way to do that is through addictions. And now you start seeing the connections to our institute. So I'll get to my department as well. Smoking, taking drugs, alcohol, these are all addictions in the tangible realm, right? We call them the tangibles or the graspables. But there are not, but aren't there other non-tangible mechanisms of shedding responsibility and therefore power from oneself? So I'll give a short introduction to the different departments of the Institute. If you have questions, by the way, then, oh, I see there is already one. I don't know how you guys want to have this discussion, but I am reading from a paper, so I don't see the screen if you're raising your hand. So maybe just...
So I will ask you, Ethan, do you rather have questions during your talk or afterwards? Because I
will read a little bit more and then I'll give you time for questions. I hope.
Yeah, that's what I think is better, and that's what we talked about also. So
okay, so we'll do it like that.
I'll save it for the questions for later. It's okay, we see them. Okay.
So one department of our institute is researching self-described mental disturbances. This is around people who are claiming to be bipolar or suffering from clinical depression or schizophrenia, for example, without having any doctor, psychologist, or psychiatrist looking at it or confirming it. This is a classic case of postmodern rejection of authority, which allows one to have the agency to release oneself from agency. Another department is the Department of Health and Wealth. This department looks into the addiction of having a healthy lifestyle, but again, not as a way of gaining power or control over one's life, but as a way to shed any responsibility in cases of health issues. For example, these people would say, I don't know, it's not an exhaustion, your body is trying to tell you something, or it's not cancer, your lungs are trying to tell you something, or it's not a stroke, your heart is trying to tell you something, and so on, or it's not stupidity, your brain is trying to tell you something. Well, we are working with these people and trying to make them understand that your lungs and your body and your brain and your heart are you, and you had agency all along. This is also the addiction to non-addiction, we call it, or the addiction to non-tangibles. People who don't smoke, don't drink, don't do anything that might lead them to what they think is an addiction. That is their addiction. I'll be done shortly. Then the Department of Conspiracy Theories, not a lot to say there. They are working around the clock since COVID. There we see people not really addicted to the idea of flat Earth or a QAnon or a pandemic raging around the world from which we must vaccinate ourselves. But rather, they are addicted to the feeling of togetherness, of not feeling alone in a struggle. A struggle, by the way, is another characteristic of the will to know power, right? Through being in a struggle, one asserts not having the power at the moment. We'll talk about that later if you want. There's also something about the performative act of seeking, which contains in itself the not finding or not finding yet. All right, so yes, addiction to struggling is one of the topics being researched. Also in the Department of Conspiracies, in our department, the Department of Messianism, we research the notion things are controlled by something bigger than me, yet not religious. No? So we say Messianism, which is definitely a religious term, but we mean in an academic way. The trend of Messianism in academia is what we talk about. It allows people to believe in terms like now time or the event without being perceived as believing in any religion. We overlap, a few topics of ours overlap with conspiracies, but the focus is different, right? The subjects, the humans we research have a much more direct connection to the idea or to their dissertation or art rather than the group or the togetherness. That's us, and I think we can have questions before we go into me asking you questions, if that's okay with you.
So first, I'll open the floor to questions to those who are here with us on Zoom. Would be nice by video, but if you want, you can write in the chat.
I think Adam had a question.
Nope, I'm good.
All right, so if it's okay, I will read out a question from our community channel. You were talking about the different departments and all of them, just a sec. Now the screen is okay. When you regarded the department of your body is trying to tell you something, does that mean it has to be a medical situation really existing? Or did you mean that it's just your mind making you feel sick?
Well, this is a great question to my colleagues from the Department of Health and Wealth will be better in answering probably. From what I know about the research, it's not necessarily an actual medical condition. It could also be a fake medical condition or well, we try to believe the patients, but it's not always the case. But for example, exhaustion is it's not medical, but it is something you feel. We're more concentrated on the act of throwing the responsibility on something else rather than you, like a Q or like the conspiracy of the round Earth, or your body or your brain, talking about it as something external to you. That's this praxis is what we're researching.
All right, I think I will for now not read more questions from our portal channel. I will say them a bit for later because I want us to be more concise, cohesive about your department. If anyone else with us at Zoom would not like to ask questions, I think it's a good time for you to ask us questions.
All right. So I will ask you these questions and try to assert if this is actually a cult that we're dealing with, or that you're dealing with as leader or not leader. I'm not going to determine today probably, but what I am certain of is that also a leader of a cult is dealing with the fact that it is a cult. And so I will try to assert if this is what you're dealing with and this is what we're all dealing with. Could I start by asking other members of Desperately Seeking? Yeah, okay. So who wants to go first?
I could go.
All right. Because do you ever, and this is important for me to say, this is a standard questionnaire that we're doing in our department to any new patients. So do you ever stress out or cry over things you have no control over?
Yeah, on a daily basis. I mean, who doesn't?
A lot of people. Okay, so yes, you are claiming agency where you don't have it through the act of getting emotional and involved.
Yeah, I mean, with agency, if you consider feeling something an agency, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Is saying I love you to someone gaining power over them, or rather handing power over to them?
Well, I guess it depends on the sincerity or the reality of that declaration, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's terrifying to be in love. So
It's terrifying. I'm just talking about the articulation of it in words. Is it terrifying to say I love you to someone?
If I don't mean it, no. But if I
you
mean it,
it's terrifying.
Yeah, and it's harder to say,
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
And you think it's terrifying and harder because you're losing control or because you're gaining control? What is the burden there? The loss or the gain?
Both. I don't know how to say. It goes both ways. Like if I say it, meaning it, then it's a loss of control. But if I say it without meaning it, it's I gain control.
Very interesting response. Gazda, do you like horror films?
No.
No, why not?
I don't think I believe I don't need to like expand my horizon on the adrenaline department. I have enough. So I don't need like scenarios.
You don't like adrenaline?
No.
Or you don't like too much of it?
I mean, I like adrenaline, but it feels in horror films it's uncontrolled. Like I cannot control the adrenaline because it's if it's really well made, it's not a nice feeling.
Okay. Because I will ask you a last question from the list for now, and I need you to be honest with me.
This feels really personal, and okay, go ahead.
What do you enjoy more, laughing or crying?
Ooh, tough question. I'm gonna go with laughing.
All right. Okay, thank you, Gözde. We will be back with
Thank
you. Talk to Gabriel a little bit. Gabriel, when did you feel like you first lost agency in a situation? Do you remember, or one of the times that you remember, early times?
Lost agency as in, how would you define agency in this particular matter, this context?
Well, you have several agencies in life, right? When you're talking to a person, you're an agency in this discussion. When somebody hears what you have to say, when somebody is appreciating your opinion, you have an agency over them and so on. And then there is the loss of agency. And this feeling can be frightening or can be freeing. And I'm asking myself if this, how was it for you?
So I can say that altogether, I guess I started feeling as if what I have to say no longer matters when I started feeling old. When I started feeling that the next generation is already picking up the pace, and the generation after that, and that nothing that I could actually say right now would be a novel perspective or would contribute anything of actual value. So on a generational level, I feel I have lost agency.
And does it feel good or does it feel bad?
It kind of, it really depends. It depends which end of this double-edged sword you're looking at it from. So I wouldn't want to be a Zoomer right now because they are going to inherit a pretty shitty earth. I'm not bringing kids into this world for that particular reason. But on the other hand, the egotistical Gabby, the one that wants to make it, knows that he will never get that MTV award and that nobody watches MTV anymore. So that part of me is lamenting a possible fame or recognition that I probably will never get. On the other hand, it's not for posterity because I really do believe that we're on the brinks of extinction anyway. So what does it matter? It's pretty confusing.
So this extinction you're talking about, does it make you feel less responsible for your actions, so to say? Or does it make you feel more responsible for your actions? Because there are both, right? There are people who are obsessed with saving the earth for some reason, and then there are people who are letting go because it is unsavable. So which is you? Which one is you?
So I guess up until 2015, up until 2017, I was full-on agency, screaming from the rooftops, the world's about to end, the world's about to end, especially coming from Israel, which is a country in which there's very little awareness to the phenomenon of climate change. And then there was a switch, right? When characters like Greta Thunberg stepped into the scene, when suddenly I started noticing that there is actual recognition of the situation, the predicament, I kind of felt like, you know what? I did my, I played my part, and there was like this sense of enormous freedom that now, like, that's someone else's problem because I was round one.
Well, that sounds like enjoying a loss of energy a lot. A loss of agency.
Was that a Freudian slip?
It wasn't a Freudian slip because it lasted for a few minutes, but I think, oh, you mean the energy agency kind of?
Yeah.
Oh, that was a Freudian slip, yes. But so you enjoy the loss of agency. I can write it down, right? Based on the example you just gave.
Yeah, it gives me a mandate to actually now start dealing with other stuff that didn't was considered by myself non-important, and now also not really caring how much it would resonate, because there isn't going to be a generation to appreciate it, 50 years from now. So who cares if I'm famous or not famous? Who cares if the world, the world is ending, so it's a win-win for me. Like either way, I can do whatever the fuck I want.
So if that's your stance on it, can I deduce that as opposed to girls that you do not stress out or cry over things you have no control over?
It comes and goes, it really depends. It's very weird. I constantly think that on one hand, nobody cares to watch and no one's looking at me. And on the other hand, I'm thinking, I must be hard to watch. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that there's an enormous freedom that's been extended to me on one hand. On the other hand, I lament the responsibility that I thought that I would have.
Yeah.
I don't know if that answers your question, but it's a conflict. It's an inner conflict.
Gabriel, do you enjoy more laughing or crying?
Honestly, crying.
Yes, I assumed so. Okay. Carmel, I have questions also that you're already with because I was asking Gerda and Gabriel, and but I want to start with something else. I want to ask you, had you been a cult leader, what would have been your first command to your disciples? We can get to that in a bit. We can start with easier things.
No, I'm just trying to think how state in one sentence what I'm to clean it all out. To clean it all out.
To clean it all out. The body, the soul, the room.
Everything.
Everything.
Everything. To clean out everything so we can see more clearly. And by seeing, I mean feeling.
So are all of those things bear us from seeing something in a clear way?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Do you stress out over things you have no control over?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time. And it's especially hard because just like I said in the video, it becomes a cluster.
Yeah.
And you try
also,
not to
you mentioned hypersensitivity. Could you maybe explain that in 2 words or in a bit more?
I feel everything and it makes me put walls. And then I need to see through the holes I put in those walls. But I don't want them to be holes in walls anymore. So I'm trying to let that become more fluid again.
The holes or the walls?
The walls. Because cracking holes it hurts. And seeing from them is just like a peephole. And then I can't be in that space in between. But
yeah.
Sorry, can I interrupt? I don't want to interrupt, but just a little question, just because it's related to this. You can continue afterwards. I don't know if it is a concern of yours in the Institute, but looking at the examples here in this room right now, is it like a gender thing? Like, do women get more, do women claim more agency, or feel more than men? Is that a data you have? Thank you, and sorry.
Well, according to the data we have, there is almost no, well, there was a gender difference, but it's slowly closing with the generations, and it's very different with Zoomers. But we are researching the addiction of not having the control, or the joy of not having the control, and we see this loss of control in many forms, like laughing or crying, for example, where crying is inwards and laughing is outwards, and laughing is exposure, and crying is therefore imposure, and so on. So there are some things that are gendered or different gender-wise, but yeah, in terms of movements, or on how this addiction moves around a person or within a person, but not in terms of if they have it or not, this addiction. Carmel, do you like horror films?
I would rather not answer that question if that's fine by you.
That's fine.
That's
That's also an answer.
Pardon.
Gabriel?
I'm sorry for this chaos because I'm not sure who's looking at what, but I see that Adam Sion has raised his hand again, and I also have a question, but Carmel, up to you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
hi.
I already answered Ethan's question, so it's Adam.
So I just have a quick question about what you've said. Isn't rejoicing in lack of control a form of exerting agency over that lack of control? Thank you.
Well, this is a very dialectic question. You're talking about taking agency when from the situation where you don't have agency. Sure, you can see it that way. You could also say that through smoking, you gain control over your mood, right? Because you determine when are you going to be nervous and when are you going to relax. But I'm not sure that this is what having control means, right? So
what does having control mean? Because it seems to me that you always have to make concessions in one area. I mean, the blanket is short. You know, it's you try and exert control over one thing and you necessarily lose control or focus over, something else.
It's true.
So how is this different in your case?
Well, it's true what you say, and we're not bothered by the questions of if control or power are a substance with like a final substance or an infinite substance and so on. What we are researching is how people react to a situation of having power or not having power. And what I'm trying to get to is that in being addicted to things, from tangibles to the intangibles, like the concept of freedom or leading a cult, what leads you to there is not your will to power, but your will to lose it, your will to lose control eventually, some kind of an inner drive to lose control instead of...
Yeah, but once you have will, I mean, therein is nestled, a control over that situation, even if that situation which you are interested in bringing about, which you are interested in exerting power over, is loss of control. It is still a controlled intent.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting theory. Sure. I mean, there is something to it. I think our main goal is to try and determine if, according to the criteria that we have of a cult or of a messianic group, which are two different things. As I said, desperately seeking is this or the other or none of those. And well, it seems to me that this is some sort of a messianic group. I'm not sure it's a cult, but I will have to stay and experience more meetings and more events of the group in order to determine that. I saw Gabriel, you're confused. I said that the difference between a messianic group and a cult was the focus of the conspiracy theory for the subject. So in a conspiracy theory, the subject is more obsessed with the social aspect of it, where flat earther, for example, is not really obsessed with proving the earth is flat, but rather not being alone, rather being in the community of the people that think the earth is flat. And with a messianic group, you don't work towards your group members, but you're working towards the idea or the conspiracy itself. And I'm not sure, well, I kind of need to learn a bit more about the relationships between the members of Desperately Seeking in order to determine that. Yeah, Gabriel.
Kamal, is it okay if I take it up for a second?
Yeah.
Waiting my turn to speak.
That's what I want to say because you raised your hand.
So Tomo, I mean, a friend of mine, he got me interested in this whole idea of similar things to what you're saying right now, Ethan, about these cults actually providing a certain kind of community. I think we discussed this last year as well, in which the conspiracy theory is only the excuse for coming together in order to not feel alone. And I was wondering, again, it feels a bit unfair to just automatically label a group like that into a cult. And I was actually also wondering to what extent you see these as positive phenomena, not necessarily a problem. Maybe this is a coping mechanism. And I have to say, I'm kind of uncomfortable with the implicit undertone of what you're trying to say, that you're suspecting that this is indeed a cult-like community. I was wondering if this is actually where you're going with this. You say you'd like to stay and observe it for further sessions. That's great, but I mean, I don't know. This label seems very, very harsh for me at the moment. And I was wondering if you could explain a bit better why you're thinking these things, because you just asked us a bunch of questions. You're keeping the answers to yourself. I, for one, am slightly uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I think everybody's in a cult in one way or another. I don't think that this is a terrible thing to be in. It's just a matter of what you do with it and where you take it. This is to your question, if this is a good thing or a bad thing to be in a cult. There is no simple answer to that. Well, I think what you didn't like is the undertone of the journalist accusing you of being in a cult, whereas I'm saying it without an unnecessary tone of accusation.
Okay.
I think that it's a very lonely time, and a lot of people are finding themselves in organizations or well, you are defining yourself as a grassroots community. And calling it a cult just suggests a certain cult culture, radical culture that is a culture that surrounds a lot of aspects of your being, patterns, finding patterns, which is something that is to see in your community on a small scale for now.
I don't know how you, Gozda, and you, Carmel, feel about this definition. I really feel like I have to respond to this because I consider myself a pretty sound-minded individual. I might be wrong. And I remember first times last year also when Carmel approached us with these themes and these developments within the community. I admit, and pardon Carmel for saying this, she seemed to me a bit off the rails at the time. It was a bit scary to hear the founder of Desperately Seeking speaking the way that she spoke. I don't know, again, how you felt, Gozda, at the time. But the thing is that the more that I thought about it and the more that I actually looked at what was happening inside of Desperately Seeking, if you actually go through the chats and if you actually go through the channels, most of the traffic that's going this cult-like direction would be Zoomers, Generation Z, what today are called millennials, if you narrow down this term. And I'm kind of wondering where this, again, whether or not this is automatically, it's something that should be labeled as a bad thing. And to some extent, I'm trying to think, it's starting to make sense to me. Maybe it's not, metaphysical, conspiratorial, QAnon kind of mumbo jumbo that we're experiencing here. But you do have a situation right now of a generation that is learning to hone the technology, their own mediated image to their advantage in a way that's really scaring previous generations or people who are still adhering to forms of previous generations. There's the Tekashi 6ix9ine documentary that aired recently in which you just see a Zoomer who just took control of the Bloods of New York just in order to push his brand. Then there's the example of Billie Eilish, which I think is a very positive example of a Zoomer who is actually so aware of her brand that she is able not to so far fall where someone like Britney Spears fell like a decade ago, right? So I wouldn't put it beside youths today to actually use the power of community beyond their own personal brand to actually retaliate, considering what they're facing, considering the predicament that they're in. And in that sense, I think there might be some sense to Carmel's intuition here that the community is going in that direction and that it might be hijacked by this young generation. I don't exactly know where we're going with this. I don't know if to call it a good thing or a bad thing. Part of me kind of wants to see the whole thing go up in flames, but
well, where are they?
What?
Where are they? We're on Zoom. Where are the Zoomers?
They're in our community channel. Most of them do not like to be in this kind of public spaces, especially because of these reasons. They have, like we have our own channel, and I'm pretty sure they have more channels because we were hacked and we cannot control our system as we used to. And I know Adam Ray.
Control it.
Yeah, I know Adam raised his hand, and I also want to ask him a question, but I want to comment to what Gabriel said. My own personal opinion regarding cults, if they're good or bad, is irrelevant. What is relevant is what is going on in the community, and if we can steer the will of the people or whatever they are to certain places, and or do they do it by themselves? Because like you said, a community is something that is growing by itself, like I said, and I see it everywhere, not just in Desperately Seeking, but I will never retaliate using violence. And I see the world going there. And I don't want to be responsible to a community becoming a cult or something that might retaliate this direction. This is what scares me the most. Yes, Adam raised his hand earlier, Gozde, if that's okay by you. And Adam, I want to ask you a question before you ask your question. You wrote in the chat, you know what you will do, what you will command your disciples. So what would you command them to do?
So I think another thing that came up in the chat is that the world is ending. And I think we tend to associate our own agency as a reason for that. I think we are exerting retroactive agency over the end of the world. And I think if we accept that agency, right, if we accept this idea that our actions have brought about results with which we are not necessarily happy, but are still, you know, the results of our own actions, I think there is something comforting about that. You know, maybe the world's ending, but we did it. You know, this is our achievement. And I would want my disciples to be robbed of that achievement. I would want them to feel like this has nothing to do with them, that they are innocent bystanders, that they are victims of circumstance. Because I think from that place comes real agency. It forces you to accept reality as it is, and then start asking what you can actually do, rather than fantasize about what you've done.
Thank you, Adam. Gozde?
I wanted to say two things. First one, when Ethan, can I call you Ethan or like a professor? Professor?
Doctor is okay, that's enough.
Doctor is enough, all right. So two things. One, when Dr. Ethan was talking about losing power or agency, it made me think of Chris Hedges and his critique of Hitchens and the Mimesis people, like the new atheists. He said it's easy to act when you externalize the evil. And it's also being used not only by cults, well, also by cults like fundamental Christian cults or fundamental scientific cults, etc., etc. Yeah, that was something that struck me. And the other thing about answering your question about if this is a cult or not, I mean, I don't know what difference it makes, actually. If we are a cult, like, how do you define a cult? I don't find your definition of like not being alone when you described flat earthers want a community, Messianic religions want a community. Everybody wants a community. So you can describe, I don't know, like any kind of hobby group, like photographers, weekend photographers is a cult, you know? So I don't really mind the description, if Desperately Seeking is a cult or not. I enjoy it. I like it. It annoys me. It helps me. It's fun. And not fun sometimes, but that's also fun.
May I respond?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
Ethan.
Well, first of all, I think the definition matters when we ask, and Carmel asked, how do we steer away from that? And this is where I go into the practical notes of the meeting. Well, Adam was talking about the moving from lack of agency or feeling like being completely powerless into agency, right? This is the time when you feel like you're just a subject of a dying earth, that you had nothing to do with it. That's where you gain agency. And I want to do I want to start doing that and say, well, the praxis of your name, 3 adjectives, and the one thing that you haven't yet found that you're looking for, that's a performance of lack of agency. And that's a performance of seeking and not of finding. And I would like to ask you, and you, whoever wants, you can go first, but I'm asking the core members, if you can tell me your username, 3 verbs that describe you, and the one thing that you have found and you wish you hadn't.
Okay. Do you want to go, one of you?
I already wrote down my answers, so I can go first. Mamel. I guess just like I said in the video, outgoing, ambitious, and hypersensitive. And I wish I wouldn't found out so many things about everything, because it's not like I'm really finding them. I just feel therefore I know.
Thank you, Carmel. Just one quick note that you were saying 3 adjectives. I was asking for 3 verbs.
I'm sorry. So we need to write.
We can get back to that if you want.
I have my pen. I'm writing verbs. Gabi, would you like to go now, or goes there, or maybe some?
I can go if Goza doesn't want to go. By the way, Carmel, I think we should slowly move towards wrapping up, if I'm looking at the time.
Yes.
So concluding remarks, I think everyone, including you, Ethan. So I just go as Gabriel S. Moses, which in itself is artist name, is a stage name. My actual name is Gabriel Ben Moshe. 3 verbs that describe me. Ruminate. What's the active verb for being anxious? Well, that.
That's cheating, Gabriel. That is cheating.
Okay, okay. Okay. Ruminate, speculate, create. Can't believe I said that. And the one thing that I wish that I had never found, maybe the meaning of it all.
Maybe what?
The meaning of it all.
You found it.
You have found it.
At the age of 16, and it's been haunting me ever since, because each time I try to, stimulate myself, I just recall that, oh yeah, it's like at the age of 16, you figure it out, and then everything else is just another interesting article, another paper, another text, but it's not that whoa moment.
So what is it?
It's pretty corny. It's the thing that anyone would understand on acid, life is just, the whole conscious sentience, self-awareness, metta kind of thing, but on a very intuitive level. I just listened to way too much Radiohead at the time. And I had like this reverse mirror stage, disembodied kind of stage. That meaning has no meaning, and everything means everything, and God and nothingness, and blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and everything else is just kind of like a take on that since
Previously on Gabriel.
Yeah.
Gazda, what is your username?
I mean, it changes. I never stick to one. But
It doesn't have to be an actual one. But if you need to give us a username right on the
I'll
spot.
make something up now. Sure. Yeah, GGOOQQ. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. Yeah, I don't know. Okay. I was gonna cheat like Gabriel, like change my words, like add adjectives into verbs. Can I like still do that?
Okay.
Just for
I will
one.
stick along for the next meetings as well. So you can do that now, but you must find 3 verbs that describe you eventually.
Okay, maybe you become a DS member. How about that? Maybe you join the community. Think about it.
It's going to be a spectator for now, but yes, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, empathizing is one of the words. Although now I'm thinking that my empathy or like empathizing could just be a trauma response, then I'm thinking that you don't believe in trauma. So
I don't believe in trauma.
Yeah, because what you said about mental health is a bit scandalous, actually, like that you're trying to convince people that they don't have mental health issues. I'm like, that's weird. Anyways, a tiny footnote.
It's an interesting take on what I said. I'll just
don't analyze me.
That's what I'm here for, isn't it? Am I not? Okay.
Okay. Seeking. One of the verbs. And I don't know. Not knowing, maybe. Then another one. I have to say I'm a bit lost. Like, I don't know what I found. I found my glasses the other day. I lost them a week ago. So that was good. But I'm not regretting that. I don't know what I found and that's also something I regret. Not applicable. I don't know. No answer
Okay.
there.
All right. I will not have my closing remarks just yet. I will not have them today. I will have them some other time because I need to do some more researching on this group. But you can go ahead and do yours if you want to.
I was trying to think. I'm also quite dyslexic, so I'm never quite sure what is a verb and what is what. But I wrote, and I think alien, soft, harsh.
I think those are still adjectives. But
I'm still unsure what verbs are. I'm sorry.
But maybe Ethan, if he stays with us for the next sessions, maybe you can stay in touch and try and.
Yes.
We can also conduct this in one-on-one interviews later on, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel, what would you like to say about, like, how did you see this conversation going? Would you like to say something now, or do you feel like, Ethan, you need time to think more?
I personally felt or feel that this conversation was very informative. It does shed a certain kind of light, although, again, the more time passes, the more I feel I'm looking at things from a generational lens. I am inclined to be a cynic. I'm inclined to kind of want to, quote unquote, fuck shit up and let the world burn and just use the current situation in order to push it and accelerate it to the brinks. Whereas now I do see that this might not be the novel radical perspective that I thought I had, but actually a pretty outdated one. And what we're seeing right now inside of our community is maybe some kind of form of a collective force that is trying to do something with that. And so in many ways, actually, Ethan's comments, which kind of refute this effort to some extent, or look at it as a performance, as you said, it made me convinced even more that there's something very empowering here. I don't know where we will meet eventually. And I also second Gozda regarding her comments on mental illness. And I would ask for some further clarification about this along the way, Ethan, because it does seem as if you're implying, slightly trivializing the hardship of others by just calling it.
Okay, well, it seems like I need to clarify it now because there's a lot of you. I'm not saying anything about mental illnesses or anything of that sort. What I'm saying is that we see in the Institute a growing phenomenon of people describing themselves as such without having it confirmed or checked by any professional. And it doesn't mean that what they feel and what they experience is wrong. It just shows a certain praxis that is getting wider in the population.
So I guess we're also seeing this to some extent in our community. The thing that scares me is that what I'm seeing here, that this is a concerted effort of many. It's way beyond the one individual at this point. It's as if people are harnessing their unwellness or this take on the deep wells of wellness and the darkest wells of those in order to come together from their own personal struggle to push things over the edge. That's particularly my concern, and I feel a bit, I feel I don't have agency, I don't have power the way that I used to actually understand what's going on and see where this is going.
Gazda, would you like to add something?
Love each other.
I will make my closing remark short because we're running out of time. I recently experienced a conversation that helped me find a way to come back to the word believe. And if there are any other comments, I think it's time for us to say goodbye. And I don't see anyone raising his hand in the chat here at Zoom. So I would like all of you, though, to maybe join us what we usually do in our meetings and what we also did in our previous Zoom Check the Room, or Z Street, like we call it now. And for that, it will be nice if the people who are with us here at Zoom will open their mics
and camera
and the microphones if they unmute themselves.
and camera maybe would also be nice.
Yes, that will be nice. And please repeat after me. I've climbed the highest mountains.
I've climbed
the highest mountains.
I've run through the fields.
I ran
through
through
the
the
fields.
Only to be with you.
only
to
to be with
with
you.
you.
I've run
I've ran
and crawled.
and
and
crawled.
crawled.
I've scaled the city walls.
I've
scaled
scaled the city walls.
Only to be with you.
Only
To
to
be
be
you.
with you.
But I still
But I
still
haven't found
haven't found
what I'm looking for.
what I'm
I'm looking for.
Thank you, everyone here joining us. Especially thank you, Ethan. We're looking forward to hearing from you and seeing you again and receiving some more questions and reports. Thank you, Gabriel and Gozde, for doing this thing. And thank you for here, the people with us at Zoom that joined us, the people that are watching us live at YouTube and at our community channel. And thank you again to our sponsors. Everyone, I wish you a lovely weekend. And thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.